streaming. So, so tonight we're talking about the new data coming out from the ETA about North Carolina. So that's what you see. Hopefully you see it. Hopefully you see it up on the screen here. Hopefully you see it both in on TikTok and YouTube. Let's see if I can monitor this again on TikTok. Couldn't go live. Go to Restream and try again. Well, apparently my access is approved. Maybe I'm live. Maybe I'm not. Oh, yeah. Maybe I need to download Live Studio, but I don't think I can on a Mac. Yeah, it'll download this thing, but it won't work. Maybe that's what you need. Yeah, Windows. All right. Maybe my pal Promith will monitor this for us on TikTok. In the meantime, let me see if I can monitor this on YouTube. So far a little disappointing in that I have a hard time seeing comments or anything. I'm not seeing any comments. The last time I did this, I got spooked and I thought I wasn't really streaming, but I was streaming. But I just couldn't see. All right. But I do see that I am streaming on YouTube. So that's good. That's cool. And I'll give myself a thumbs up. And then we'll show the chat here. All right. There's that big latency there. So now as for TikTok, it'd be really cool to know if I'm streaming on TikTok right now. That'd be really cool to know. I can see my account, but what does it say about me? I don't know. I don't know if I could monitor my own live stream from my own account. So that's a bit awkward. Now, if Promith gets on, maybe he can handle checking out whether I'm live or not. I'm going to just write him right now a little message. Maybe you can confirm if we're live right now on TikTok. TikTok actually makes it very difficult to stream on TikTok from anywhere else other than TikTok. Like you have to be right in TikTok to do it. Right, there we go. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, let's see how well this works. Welcome to my second attempt at technically it's my third attempt at live streaming, with a fancy service that allows me to kind of do this with showing you stuff. So we'll see how this works. So this came out from the Election Truth Alliance. I think it came out yesterday. So Hoping I'll see this. I'm kind of monitoring what I look like on YouTube, anyways, and I'm hoping that this will. Yes, there it goes. That I actually am controlling the screen. Um, hmm. Wonder if I can do this to make it fit. Will that work? It'll take a few seconds to find out whether that'll work. I'm kind of I'm making the screen narrower. All right. And where was that ticker? There's supposed to be a ticker going across the screen. Anyways, I can see that my approach to narrowing the screen kind of worked. Move this around like that. No, don't do that. Oh my goodness. All right. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, North Carolina has now been analyzed. And when I say that, I mean I won't say their full name, the ETA. Hopefully, you know what that stands for. It's on the screen right now. I can see it in my monitor that jumping around. So when I say North Carolina has been analyzed, I mean just a few counties. And usually when the ETA picks counties, they pick like the biggest ones, the most populous counties. So yeah, that's what they've done. So the source of this data is the North Carolina voting data and the North Carolina election data dashboard and the North Carolina voter registration data. So here's the key findings in a nutshell. And by the way, in case you're new to, can I actually show this? Can you see my mouse? Wouldn't that be great? That would be so awesome. You could see my mouse. Then we'd have it all. I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that. Anyways, oh my goodness, you can. Yeah, so you see this, I won't say this, but this word right here. Yeah, that's cool. I can just figure out how to make my mouse really big and bright, and that would be really great for live streams. So cool. I guess with that, then I could even highlight things like this. Key findings, ladies and gentlemen. Key findings in North Carolina's recent history of insecure voting systems in 93 out of 100 North Carolina counties. So counties, right? Crazy. There's so many of them. I'm Canadian, so I'm kind of new to all this. There's more than 3,000 counties in the United States of America. And apparently the average number of counties is 60 something. But North Carolina, it's got a few more than average. So it's got 100. There's more. Texas has more. Texas has a lot more than 100. 200 and something. So in 93 of 100 North Carolina counties, votes were cast and counted on machines that did not receive full certification testing. 93 out of 100. Ballots also had to be reprinted last minute because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. left the race, and he sued to you take my name off that ballot. I won't make fun of his. I'm not going to make. I will not. I'm not even going to mention what I'm not making fun of, because I won't do it. But yeah, so they had to be reprinted at quite the last minute. It was quite difficult and quite costly to do that. So there is a substantial difference between presidential. We're going to be looking at this in great detail. Well, some detail anyways. There's a great difference between presidential and down ballot outcomes. This alone, this kind of evidence, what's called the drop-off rate. Smart E coined that phrase. Basically, it just establishes without a shadow of a doubt, that somebody monkeyed with the outcome of this big test. You'll see when I go over it, you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, so this issue is known as the drop-off rate. So it's talking about the difference between the presidential and the down ballot outcomes. So you know how in general elections, you don't just vote for the president, you vote for a bunch of different things. And so the next thing down the ballot is known as, the down ballot outcome. Generally, most of the time in this case, it's for the senator, but I'm not sure if that's the same in all counties. Let's see if I get over. I got to monitor myself here. Maybe I'm more in the screen here. All right, so I'm blathering. Democrats performed on average considerably and consistently better down the ballot than at the presidential level. And this remains true when controlling for unique local factors, like maybe there you had a controversial, maybe I got to go this way then. Let's see. I'll go this way. Maybe you had a controversial candidate for governor, for example. Maybe that governor was crazy or something. And so even when controlling for that, the presidential always did worse than the down ballot candidate. And in a moment, we'll start talking about why that's so crazy. Because in essence, what it means is somebody who voted for, say, a Democratic senator chose not to vote for a Democratic presidential candidate. And in the United States of America, come on. It's such a polarized country. You're either Republican or you're Democrat. So the idea that somebody would vote Democrat, Democrat, Democrat all down their ballot and then decide, yeah, but I like the Republican president. It's ludicrous, but the data shows that is clearly what happened. Next point, and then I'm gonna show you these graphs here. This is what shows that drop-off rate, these graphs. So there you go. Just checking. Let's see if I can learn anything about what's going on with TikTok. So, well, while we're here, why don't we just, I'm on this now. So let's talk about this drop-off rate. This could be very small if you're looking at it on TikTok. So I'll try not to refer to individual counties, but essentially, even on TikTok, you can probably see that there's right here, we've got a 0% line. It's right here. This is the 0% line. Anything above it is greater than 0%. So this, for example, maybe you can't see it. Maybe you can't even see my mouse. I don't know. Hopefully you can. This is 5%. This right here is negative 10%. Oh, and here's a funny one, ladies and gentlemen, because this is just utterly ridiculous. This is negative 25%. So what that's saying here is in 2024, for the US president, North Carolina, down ballot average in North Carolina, the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party received 25%. Actually, it's more than looks like 26 or 27% for this particular county. Sorry. Yeah, I've got a window open. My apologies. I do. It's cool evening. It gets hot in here with all the lights and stuff. Computers and monitors and all that. So, I have the window open. So what this is saying is Kamala Harris received 25, 26, 27% maybe fewer votes than the Democratic, let me see, I believe it's usually senator. But in this case, I just need to confirm that. What are we looking at? It just says down ballot candidates, Maybe I have to read the full report. But whoever was next down the down the ballot, usually it's senator, has been in other cases. You've probably heard about the Rockland County case. So I don't want to say it's the senator. The title is not actually helpful. It's not saying exactly what the down ballot candidate was. It's just kind of saying Senate or House races. But I'd like to know specifically for this data what we're looking at. Perhaps I'll find out. My apologies. But nonetheless, you can see on this is election day down here on the lower one. That's election day, and this is early voting. So election day seems to be far more extreme. Now, you'll notice this looks algorithmic. Another term that is used, especially by Smart E, is it looks programmatic, as if the result of a program. Because usually, I mean, there's always a bit of a difference between the votes for the presidential candidate and the next individual down the ballot for that same party. That's what we're comparing. We're comparing, in the red lines here, we're comparing what's the difference between the Republican presidential candidate and the next person down the ballot. Let's say it's the senator. We don't know that for sure based on this report just yet. But it's a good chance it's the senator. Oh, my camera's died. Sorry. Let me just get a new battery in that. I'll be right back. You're very kind if you're sticking around. You're very kind. I appreciate you. My camera's trying to figure out what's going on now. All right, I'm back. That delay though is but anyways, so back to this. So what we're seeing here, I wish well, actually maybe I can quickly show you just an example of another example of what's more typical to see with the drop off rate. I think I can do this. I mean, maybe I can do this on the fly. Let me try. Uh, I don't want to accidentally. Um, all right. So if I go here and I go to share screen. Oh yeah. Okay. Click here. Share that. Okay. Maybe that's working. Looks like it. Um, no. Where'd it go? Did I accidentally close it? I've got my everything. Oh no, I think it's here. Yeah, good. Okay. So over here, let me see if I can. You have to know so many things about how different programs work. How do I get rid of this sidebar here? I know you can do it. Oh, there it is. Okay. So if I squeeze this in here, oh, I just want you to be able to see everything. So here on the right, it says normal, and maybe it is. I don't think so though. My personal opinion, it's 2020. My personal opinion is these big tests have been messed around with since 2016. So I think you can see that here. To my eye, it also looks programmatic, but it looks more normal. And what we mean by that, or what people mean by that when they say that, is there's a lot more variation, a lot more natural variation. There's blue lines above 0%. There's blue lines below 0%. There's red lines above, there's red lines below. And it's all, there's a lot of variation there. There's some tall lines and there's some short lines. But where I see a problem, quite frankly, I don't know if this will work if I zoom in on this and scroll over here. So the normal drop off rate or the normal difference between a presidential candidate and um, and the next down ballot candidate is generally between 1 and 3%. But some of these tall lines here, like this line here is approaching 10%. That's quite unusual. But it could be one of the, I don't know. The, when you see it here and there, what, in this example, this is 2020 Texas party performance, presidential versus Senate. See this graph I quite like because it's quite concise. Because it's saying we're comparing the presidential candidate's percentage of votes with the Senate candidate, the senator candidate percentage of votes from the same party. Right? You're always comparing presidential candidate for one party with the senator from their same party. So it's never about, well, clearly the red party is more popular than the blue party. That's not actually what this is looking at. This is a very good example. I know we were looking at North Carolina, but I'm just trying to convey what these drop-off rates are discussing. So what this is saying this very algorithmic, very programmatic looking graph for so many reasons. First reason, the red candidate is virtually always above the 0% line. This one county, they're down by a smidgen, and it's not even 1%. It's not even 1%. So in this one county in Texas, and Texas has like 253 counties or something. So one out of like 253 counties, Donald Trump received a smidgen less, not even 1% less. Not even 1% less than the Republican senator candidate for senator. Here's some other strange things. In this case, in Texas here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe I can, if we want to count this one as 5, where we could truthfully say 5 counties where the drop-off rate, if you will, is positive, approaching positive 10% for the red presidential candidate. Virtually unheard of. But it's happening here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where it's above 9%. Ridiculous. And then you'll also notice the mirroring. See? Very, very blatant in 2024 Texas presidential to senator drop-off rate. See the mirroring? We've got a tall line here, so we've got a tall negative line here for Kamala Harris. Tall line here, tall line here, tall line here, tall line here. Got a I mean, they're all tall, so this one doesn't really mirror very well, or it blends in, if you will. But tall one here, tall one here. Look at these 2 tall ones here. Maybe if this is streaming on TikTok, maybe it's hard to see this, but you can even see the pattern. 2 tall ones. This one's not quite as tall as this one. Look at the pattern down here. So what is this saying, ladies and gentlemen? This is suggesting vote switching, right? So if you've got a ballot, what would you think if you were like literally reading these ballots? What would you be thinking as a rational human being? This person voted Democrat, 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 Democrat down the ballot. Now, do we know, based on this analysis, what all the other votes were for candidates? No, we don't. To do a statistical analysis, you have to be very strict with your analytical setup, your methodology. If you're going to compare the presidential candidate to a down ballot candidate, you have to pick one candidate and always stick to that one candidate. Compare. Not like, oh, they didn't vote for anybody so go down to the next one down. Like you can't do things like that when you're performing data analysis or any kind of field study or any analysis. I don't want to blather on about that, but you can imagine if you were doing a field study of seeing whether cars come to a full stop at a stop sign. So some cars you go, oh, I'm not going to count that because that's a moving van. Well, you have to be really strict in the rules of your analysis. Are you going to count moving vans? Are you going to count school buses? Are you going to count motorcycles and so on? You'd have to be very strict. So that's why it's set up this way. They're just very strictly comparing the president to the Senate. So while we don't have the whole ticket, to look at here, we know that in comparison to the senator, the red team, the red party presidential candidate constantly gets more votes than their red team senator, which is strange because you'd think if you were voting for if you were voting for the red team president, you would also vote for the red team senator. You can look at it that way, right? So if you look at it like let's compare the president. Let's focus on the president. Okay, so they voted for the president in this case in Texas here. Uh, um, 5 different counties are close to 10%. So we're saying close to 10% of the people in that county voted for the Republican team presidential candidate, but did not vote for the Republican team senator. Is that believable to you? It's not believable to me. It's not believable to any rational person. So there is quite often, like I said before, 1 to 3% drop off rate. That's because some people just vote for president and they're like, yeah, I'm done. Yeah, I don't have time for all this other stuff. I don't know who this person is, whatever. They just vote for president and they hand in their ballot. So that generally produces a 1 to 3% drop off rate where, typically it's a positive drop off rate. So the presidential candidate receives 1 to 3% more votes than, let's say, the senator from their same party. Because the president's the big show, right? It's the big show. That's what it's all about. So people will go out of their way to vote for the president, and sometimes in 1 to 3% of the cases they're just too busy. They don't vote for anyone else. So that creates that positive drop off rate. That does not explain counties here. I can count. Let's see. If I focus on the 6% line, again, we're looking at Texas, I know, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 counties out of 253, but 16 counties where that drop off rate was at least double the highest part of the high end of the normal parameter. Double the high end of the normal parameter. And as you can see, it's constant. Red team constantly more votes for the president than the senator from the same party received. And for the blue team, constantly the president got fewer votes than the Democratic senator received. So again, like I said, we're not comparing popularity of one party against another. We're comparing the popularity of one candidate against another candidate from their same party. Normally, this is not a great example, but it conveys the idea. It should be more of a mix like this. Some lines are up, some lines are down. There are different lengths. So that's far more normal, but I still argue that we see more tall lines for, positive tall lines for the red team presidential candidate than we see for the blue team. And then down here in the negative zone, we see more long lines for the blue team candidate than for the red team. So I see this as programmatic. It's just not as this is subtle, and this is more than blatant. This is, I don't care if we get caught. I can do whatever I want. I'm above the law. Doesn't matter if we get caught. Who's going to do anything about it? That's what this is. That's what I see here. Maybe you see it as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me get back to, now that we've had that little discussion, let me get back. Let me get back to North Carolina if I can find it. There it is. Right, I've just got to switch that in here. And where do I do that? Probably somewhere here. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Okay, I trust that that's working. I trust that in my monitor, I will soon see this pop up. So now we're looking back at the ETA's report, just came out yesterday. I believe it was yesterday for North Carolina. So now that we've had that, we've used Texas to contrast what kind of normal looks like for a drop off rate compared to a programmatic um, set of data, which is clearly is the result of a program. It's clearly algorithmic. It's the result of an algorithm. This is not normal, natural human voting behavior. Nothing would, right? Nothing would cause human beings to all of a sudden like zombies, like, I will vote more for the presidential candidate for my party than for the senator for my county. Everyone doing that? Everyone in every county? I mean, the lines would have to be pretty small here. If it was red, I don't think I see a single negative red line. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiny smidgens. What did we say? There was 100 counties in North Carolina? And I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The smidgens, you wouldn't even be able to see them on your screen, but I can see them in because I have a huge monitor in front of me. Tiny little smidgens, 6 or 7 little smidgens of a positive drop-off rate for Kamala Harris. All the others, so 93, and I believe that was that in the analysis I was reading before, 93 are negative. Whereas it looks to me like 100% for the red team presidential candidate are positive. Dumpy getting always more votes than the red team senator or Senate candidate for senator received. And the blue team presidential candidate always getting fewer votes than the Senate candidate for her same team. People in nature don't all of a sudden, they're zombies, they're in control, they're hypnotized. Somebody used the force and you don't need to vote for the senator candidate. You know what? Sorry, that doesn't have, this is not normal. This is not natural. It's not even close. Like I said, this is brazen. This is rigging that is so aggressive that they don't even care if they get caught. They don't care if people see it. They don't care. And even with this kind of aggressive rigging, the presidential candidate didn't even crack 50% popular vote. They cheated because they knew they had to. There are some analyses, and let's see, I think I can quickly show you. If I come back here, there are some analyses that say that if we, including this one, by the way, that they say, okay, let's take this data that we have here, and let's just convert these numbers back to the normal baseline of generally a candidate would receive between 1 and 3% more votes than the senator from their same party. All right. So I believe what the ETA did I believe, I think it's outlined in this report. They said, okay, well, if we err on the side of caution, let's be conservative here, and let's just give Kamala Harris 1%. Normal is between 1 and 3. We'll just give her 1% more. Actually, I think they may have said, actually, not even like no more. Let's just make it even. I think that's what they did. If she even just got the same number of votes, I believe that's what they did, the same number of votes as the senator, you can see, you could very easily kind of reverse engineer this algorithm and kind of correct for it and determine how many votes she would have gotten. And in that case, she would have won handily. So now let me see if I can show you this thing again. Screen share. Going back to this report here. So, right, that's cool. All right, I'm getting onto this. No, maybe I'm not getting onto it. Where did it go? There it is. It was hidden. All right, somewhere in this report. Can I make this go? No, I can't. Maybe I can do it this way. Oh yeah, that's cool. In this report, through kind of reverse engineering, if you will, or yeah, here's what I was looking for. Through kind of a regression analysis, that kind of process where they can just very easily look at, as if this is a very simple way of doing it. Just look at, well, how many votes did the senator from the same party get? What if, let's just imagine for a moment, let's model, what if the presidential candidate for the blue team got as many votes as the senator did for their same team? Because presumably somebody voting for a blue senator is blue. It's not normal, ladies and gentlemen, to vote for a Democratic senator and then vote for a Republican president. That's not normal. The only reason why we typically have a positive drop-off rate isn't because of kind of splitting the vote that way, but rather just, I mean, that does happen in rare cases. It's very rare. Must be some reason for it. Like, I just hate that governor. He stole my girlfriend in high school, or that senator or whatever. So it's rare circumstances that cause that to happen. In this case, you can see how programmatic the data looks. It's ridiculous. It's like they didn't even care. They didn't even care about getting caught. Anyways, so if we kind of reverse engineer everything back to where it should have been, one assessment suggests that Kamala Harris would have received 67% of the vote, and that would have been absolutely historic. That would have been the record. No presidential candidate has ever gotten. I don't even think they've gotten 60% of the vote. Maybe 58%. Maybe Ronald Reagan, 58.8, I think. So yeah, I think this prediction here is from Greg Palast. Estimates that at a minimum 3,565,000 votes were suppressed from Harris, and would present this in his role. He presented that in his role as a forensic expert as the lowest conceivable suppression factor. That's at minimum 33.5 million votes suppressed from Harris. So if we gave her those votes back, she would have won 6 of 7 swing states, plus Texas, handing her 359 seats, or not seats, electoral colleges to Dumpy's 179. That is the level of manipulation in the outcome of this big test that we're looking at. Anyways, I did say that I would focus on North Carolina, so let me do that. Ladies and gentlemen, right back here. I guess kind of getting the hang of this. Kind of. We're looking for a screen share, and we're looking at North Carolina. And here we go, North Carolina. That was kind of cool. It pops me right into that window, I guess. Nice. All right, so here's my favorite graphs. These are scatter plot graphs, and we're just looking at total votes here, total number of votes on the x-axis versus the vote share on the y-axis. So vote share meaning, if it's share, it's on a percentage. So that's why this axis goes from 0 to 100%. The most, the highest share of votes you can get is 100%. So you can see early, we shouldn't say that. We don't want to say the word early or late because this is not time down here on the y-axis, x-axis, sorry. X-axis, I hope I didn't misspeak earlier. Rather, we're looking at number of votes per precinct. So some precincts are huge and some are very rural. So some of these precincts, it looks like the lowest, even the lowest ones down here, this is 500. This is about 250. So the lowest ones are, they're getting 200 to 250 votes. But very quickly, to my eye, this becomes programmatic. And I had the opportunity to interview Nathan Taylor from the ETA on the 14th. It was just a little more than a week ago. So, and he was discussing the fact that it really looks like a program kicks in at about 250 votes. But it's different for different years and different counties. So this one looks like more like it's kind of kicking in at 500 to my eye, but at about 500 votes, maybe more. Gosh, maybe more. I should read the report. A typical guy, right? I get something from IKEA. I just try to put it together myself. I don't read the instructions. I should have read this report more thoroughly. I glanced at it earlier today, but this data might be kind of looking normal up to about 1,000 votes. But then a program kicks in and it switches. So this is completely not normal, ladies and gentlemen, not normal. Because normally what would happen is even if a candidate is crushing it, and by my eye, Kamala Harris is crushing it here. You see all these blue precincts, very high. I mean, some of these are approaching, they're above 90% vote share. And that we have that data up until even past 1,000 votes per precinct. In precincts that have 1,000 votes or less, Kamala Harris is crushing it. And look at, like, if she's getting close to 90% of the vote, Dumpy's getting around 10%. She's crushing it. But then look what happens. Very programmatic, very algorithmic. So this kind of trend here that we see where as the number of votes go up, I'm just going to show you this for a moment. As the number of votes go up, the percentage share for a particular candidate goes up. That is That is a fingerprint of ballot stuffing, because if you get your hands on a particular ballot box and you're like, nobody's looking, let's stuff a bunch of ballots in there, man. Let's stuff these ballots in there. And you stuff a bunch of ballots in there. And you're like, cool, no one will ever know, because that people don't sign these things. They're not going to check them for fingerprints. How can they know? Well, the one thing that, people think about it now because they're aware about this. But, if you're new to this concept, the one thing you might not have thought about is, well, when you stuff a bunch of votes in, like I did here, I stuffed extra red votes in here. In this one and this one, they're about even. But here I stuffed a bunch of red votes. And you can see the fingerprint of ballot stuffing. Do you see it? Yeah. There's more votes. There's more ballots in that box because it was stuffed. And so if you do that on a large scale, systematically, then you get this pattern that we see on the screen here. Forgive me. I'm just realizing, looking at my monitor, that you're not seeing the whole screen. I'll see if I can fix that. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. There's a lag between what I see in my monitor and what I see, or what I'm doing. All right. That seems to have fixed it. My apologies. I've been nattering on and you couldn't see the whole graph. Well, at least you can see this one over here. Hard to say which one's worse. I don't know. I think this one's more extreme. This is early voting for Forsyth County, and this is election day for Forsyth County. So I'd say that early voting is even more programmatic looking. They're both clearly programmatic. They're both algorithmic. This should just be straight lines, just straight lines. I wonder if I can very, very quickly and conveniently stay in this window and show you. I think I can. Oh, look at this. Okay, cool. So I'll just show you, like, this is what it would normally look like. This is normal. I actually made up a t-shirt and you can see a video of it. I put up in the past couple of days. Like, I think I put it up on Wednesday. Check it out if you want to indulge me. It's on, it's on both TikTok and YouTube. So, and so on the front of my shirt, I say, this is what a rigged, I don't, test. I'll say test here, but on my shirt, it actually says what it is. This is what a rigged test looks like. And it looked like that, the ones that I was just showing you from North Carolina. And then on the back of my shirt, it says, this is what a normal test looks like. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is what the back of my shirt looks like. It wasn't this one exactly, because this is just kind of an example, like a fictional example. The actual example I used, I also got from the Election Truth Alliance, and I believe it was under analysis of states, Pennsylvania. And we can see it down here, I hope. Hope I'll get to it. Really relying on my memory. This is Pennsylvania again. You can see the same kind of drop-off rate. Very programmatic looking. Not nearly as extreme as North Carolina, but still ridiculous. But anyways, I'll scroll down. I want to show you that example. There you go. So here's 2024 mail-in. This is mail-in. This is why Dumpy wants to get rid of mail-in ballots, because they're harder to mess with. Not impossible, because there are some counties and some states where clearly the mail-in data was messed with too. But this is normal. So clearly in San Mateo County, California, mail-in voting data They couldn't get to it. They just couldn't get to it. This is pristine. This is just normal looking. So you see what I mean? It goes along a straight line. This is how numbers work, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't have to be elections. Let's say we were what we're looking at here. Let's say this is 5'10" right here. Let's say we're looking at the height of men versus women. And let's say this goes, this axis extends much further down. And I believe the average height for a male is 5'10". So what you would see in, oh, look at that. What you'd see in nature is if you sampled smaller groups of men, you'd have more variation. So that's what you see here. More variation, but you're still sampling reality. And let's remember, let's say that the average height of men is 5'10". So the reality is the average man is 5'10", the average man. So if you just sample a group of 3 guys here, a group of 5 guys there, a group of 4 guys there, you'll get all kinds of variation because maybe those guys were tall, maybe those guys were shorter. But as the groups of men, your sample sizes, as those sample sizes go up, like this, where the total vote count goes higher, all that happens in nature, in reality, is that sample group will pull closer to the average because it's a bigger sample size, so it's more accurate. That's the law of large numbers. The larger the sample, the more accurate the statistical inference. That's what happens. So that's why this is just the natural, normal result that you would see. In this case, we're not sampling people's heights. We're sampling, if you will, how did people tend to vote in smaller groups in these precincts that were smaller. And you can see some of these precincts are really small. You can see the incredible variation amongst these precincts that have under 100 people, under 100 votes. So a lot more variation, just like if we were measuring the heights of men, let's say, and you just get a group of 2 or 3 guys and average their height, you'll get a lot of variation because, they're not necessarily going to be average height, and it's a small group. But if you sample a group of like 100 guys or 1,000 guys, you're going to get something. If you average their height, you're going to get something very close to 5'10", because that's the average height. Anyways, that's why we see this. You'll basically have an average established early on. It doesn't take too much data to give us an average. So we can see, just our eyes can tell us where the trend line would be here. It would be somewhere just below 80%. So you can see what happened in San Mateo County here. Dumpy got crushed by Harris. Harris was getting like 78, 77% of the vote here. And Dumpy was getting like 23% or something, 22%. But this is pristine data. Nobody got to this. Nobody manipulated it. This is unrigged. Unlike the story of the day, the focus of the day, the guest of honor, North Carolina. So I'm just going to pull us right back to North Carolina here. North Carolina. Yeah. Anyways, foolishly, I was already on the right page. If I can just remember how to get to it. Was it under advocacy material reports and presentations? I think it's analysis. States, North Carolina. Yeah, here we go. Sorry. I hope I'm in the right place. So, yeah, we were down here looking at these scatter plot graphs. Yeah. Maybe I blew past them. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. No, didn't blow past them. Well, I must have, because we had them before. Maybe I just didn't go down long enough. So here's here's one. We weren't looking at this. Oh, this is from 1992. So this is looking more normal. There's a bit of a downtrend for the Democrats and a bit of an uptrend for the Republicans, but nothing that looks nearly as, you can see this is more or less staying more or less in a straight line. It's sticking between 20 and 40%, except for this guy right there. This guy's literally on the line. And if it wasn't, honestly, if it wasn't for these two outliers, then this would look quite straight to my eye. So that's looking pretty normal. This is good because I've wanted this for a while. I wanted, show me some old election data where it's kind of looking normal. I just wish we had trend lines here. That would be nice. So that's kind of normal from 1992. And where did those nice scatter plots? We were looking at them before, right? I'm not dreaming or something. Again, 1992. Anoka County, Minnesota, looking pretty normal. And I got right through the whole report. But am I crazy, or weren't we looking at scatter plot graphs for, I must have just, did they get closed up or something? No, these are tables. Forgive me, ladies and gentlemen. Well, maybe I've lost my mind, and maybe I was looking at some other report. Maybe I was looking at that report from the Common Coalition report. I'm pretty sure I would know what I was in. Well, this is very strange. Am I in the right thing? Am I looking at Carolina? Pennsylvania, that's why I'm not seeing it. How did I get here? Oh my gosh. No, I am in the right one, because I'm looking at my monitor and I see Carolina. Maybe I've just been scrolling around accidentally on the wrong page. We shall see. Because there's such a big latency. So maybe I've been nattering on, and I should have looked in my monitor. And if there wasn't for that huge latency. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I thought we were looking at scatter plots earlier this evening. And I thought it was from North Carolina. Well, the neat thing is YouTube anyways will record this. So I will have a recording of it, and I'll see All right, what was I looking at? I thought I was looking at North Carolina. Oh, do I have to open these up? Oh, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. They get closed up. That's what it is. The mystery has been solved. Um, but I think I think I've figured out that nonetheless, we're not we're not looking at the page that I think we are. So because I'm not seeing any difference in my monitor. Um, Screen share, North Carolina, share. All right, there it is. All right. So hopefully in my monitor, I'll see these pop open. Um, Wake County. What else do we have? We've got Anoka County. Yeah, now all of a sudden they're here. None of these are, yeah, there they are. Now I see them on my monitor. If you've hung on, if you're still watching, thank you. You're very patient. I don't even know what to say. Thank you so much. But where were those others? Because these are still not the ones that we were looking at. I do see that they can get closed up and then you have to expand them. So let me see. This is election day from Wake County, looking programmatic, where as the number of votes go up, the vote share for Dumpy goes up. Programmatic, not normal. Right? It would be like if you were measuring height of men. Imagine you're doing this. As the number of men that you measure, and then you average that group. Let's say you find 10 guys and you measure their heights and you average the heights of those 10 guys. And you get a certain average. Now you grab a group of 20 guys, do the same thing. Average all of them, or measure their height, average it together. And you get a higher height. That would not be normal. But then you do it again. 30 guys. The height is even higher. The more guys that you measure, the higher the height. They get taller just by randomly sampling larger groups of men. You can see how that is not normal. That's not normal. Even with smaller groups, you'll get more variation, but you should get an average. And as the number of gentlemen whose heights you measure increases, as your sample sizes increase, your result should just be closer to the average. Hence the straight line with just more variation around it early on. I don't really mean to say early on, but with smaller sample sizes, and then less variation as you go down the line and your sample sizes get larger, your average should get closer. Your statistical inference, your result, should get closer to the average. That's what happens in nature. So this is subtle here in Wake County, but your eye can still see it. As the number of votes go up, the percentage, the vote share for Dumpy goes up. And that's because of this, ladies and gentlemen. That's just ballot stuffing. It's digital ballot stuffing, but it's ballot stuffing. It's from this, right? Here's some red beads here. Red beads. We stuff a few more votes in for Dumpy. Stuff a few more votes in there, and you can see what happens. The total number of votes in the ballot box goes up. Simple. That's the fingerprint of ballot stuffing. And that's what you see, ladies and gentlemen, in these graphs. It's ballot stuffing. There is no other explanation. Just like if you went out measuring the heights of men, and the bigger the groups of men that you measured, the average height is always going up, strangely. If you're randomly sampling men and their heights, that will not happen. It's not normal. It's not natural. That will not happen. This is not normal. This is not natural. This is the result of an algorithm. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Are these other scatter plots? This one's looking far more normal. Wonder what happened here. This is Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. It's looking pretty normal. What do we got here? This is definitely, yeah. These are huge numbers of votes, like up to 10. Some of these precincts here are getting close to, at least this one precinct anyways, very huge, almost 10,000 votes in it. So you can see a very clear trend up until 3,500 votes. Very clear trend, programmatic. And the program seems to die off here. Things start to go back to normal. I don't know why. That's quite unusual. There's also a splitting here that I'm seeing in this data, which is also... Oh, I know. I see what's happening. These machines, actually, the better way to look at it, how do I get out? Yeah, this is the better way of looking at it. These machines, the Republicans couldn't get to. These machines, they did. That's what's going on. They couldn't get to. They got to some, but not all. That's probably different brands of machines. These, if we looked into it, you'd see these brands of machines are one brand, or probably more. Yeah, this is one brand, or a certain number of different brands, and these are different brands altogether. These ones they could get to, probably these ones too. So as Nathan Taylor explained to me, this would be an example of imperfect fraud. Imperfect fraud. So you can see the footprint of where it would have been if it wasn't tampered with. These are the ones that did get tampered with. That's what's going on there. Yeah, so we've got, it's kind of funny looking because some of these they just couldn't get to, and some of them they could. Some of these machines they could. That's why it's looking so funny. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for sticking with me up until now. I'm going to let you get some sleep. I'm going to get some sleep, and we will see you in the next live stream. As I'm learning more about live streaming, I'm doing this more often because I think people have to act quickly to deal with this issue. This issue has to come to light. People have to become aware of it and demand action. And right now, that action, in case you're wondering, is demanding hand recounts of the ballots. At this point, they're called audits, not recounts, because a recount technically would count. It would change the result of an election. It's too late under the law to change the results of any elections right now. It's an audit to see what the heck happened and to try to ensure it doesn't happen again. Problem is, the people who benefited from this, the people who perpetrated it, are benefiting from it. And of course, they don't want to do anything about it. But America's supposed to be a democracy. So if, regardless of what party you support, you should be concerned about free and fair tests. That's a code word, in case you're wondering, because we get shut down if we use the right word. So anyone should be concerned about that. You should be mad about this. It doesn't matter what party you support. Anyone should be mad about this. You should be offended if the party that you support had to cheat to win. You should be offended. You should be embarrassed by that. At times I've admonished my own party for doing things that embarrassed me as a supporter of that party. I've done that. I've written them scathing emails. I wish I still had them. I don't think I do. I've tried searching for them. I would love to be able to find some of the emails I've written. People should be mad about this and demanding audits. You'd call them audits now, but basically a hand recount of the ballots. Find out what's going on. If those ballots are still legitimate, if the integrity of those ballots has been maintained, then it would be very interesting to count them and see what a hand recount reveals. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wish you a fine evening, and I will see